Why is everyone old? Seaman Patrick Brennan was 23 years old when he boarded the ship in 1943. Now, in 1978, he was still 23 years old, but everyone around him had changed. The world had changed. 4 hours ago, we were in Philadelphia, he said. The experiment started. Everything went dark, and then that thing came from the shadows. Like time itself, it chased us, took some of us, aged them 50 years in a second. Now we've come back with the ship. But it came too, and it needs more time to feed its hunger. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to Timelost Stories and hit that notification bell. We bring you the most mind-bending mysteries where time itself becomes a weapon. Your subscription helps us uncover more temporal anomalies that defy explanation. Now, let's journey to 1943 to the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. 7 a.m. Patrick Brennan stood on the deck of the USS Eldridge and looked at the morning sun. He was 23 years old, from Brooklyn. Before joining the war, he worked at a shipyard. Now, he was part of the U.S. Navy's most classified experiment. "Are you nervous?" asked the man beside him. Benjamin Cole, 25, a mechanical engineer. He spoke with a southern accent. "I don't know," said Patrick. "Is this really just a simple test like the commander said, or could something go wrong?" Benjamin shrugged. "They're just testing electromagnetic fields. It'll hide the ship from enemy radar. How bad could it be?" Before Patrick could answer, the whistle blew. Meeting time. At the briefing, Commander Gerald Strickland and science team leader Dr. Harrison Wolfe were waiting. 47 crew members had assembled. "Gentlemen," said Strickland, "today we're making history. USS Eldridge will be the first ship to test invisibility technology." Dr. Wolfe drew diagrams on the board. "The electromagnetic generators will create a field around the ship. This field will bend radar waves, making the ship invisible." A sailor raised his hand. "Is it safe?" Wolfe hesitated. "In theory, yes, but this kind of experiment has never been done before." Patrick and Benjamin made eye contact. This simple test idea didn't seem so simple anymore. The equipment was set up. Giant Tesla coils positioned on both sides of the ship were activated. The generators began humming. Patrick was in the engine room. Benjamin was beside him, checking gauges. "Power levels normal," said Benjamin. "But this sound, it's unsettling." Patrick heard it too, a low-frequency hum. A vibration felt in the bones. Commander Strickland's voice came over the radio. "All units stand by. Experiment commencing." Dr. Wolfe pulled the main switch, and the world changed. At first, it was just a green light around the ship, low and pulsing like a heartbeat. Then the light intensified. Walls began to glow. Metal surfaces vibrated. "Is this normal?" shouted Patrick. "I don't know." Benjamin was panicking. "Power levels are going out of control." And then everything went dark. Not darkness, blackness. A void where light didn't exist. Patrick tried to breathe, but the air wasn't there. Or it was, but it felt different, dense, heavy, like time itself. He didn't know how long it lasted. Seconds? Minutes? But then, the light came back. But it came back wrong. Patrick found himself on the floor. The engine room was still there, but different. The walls were slightly blurred, as if somewhere between real and a dream. "Benjamin!" he shouted. "Are you here?" He heard a groan. Benjamin was in the corner, on his knees, hands pressed to his head. "What happened?" asked Benjamin. Where are we?" Patrick looked out the window. The ocean wasn't there. Instead, an endless gray void. No horizon, no sky, just nothing. The radio crackled. Commander Strickland's voice came through, but distorted, static-filled. "All units, report. Where are we?" Patrick grabbed the radio. "Engine room here." But outside, something's wrong. Strickland's voice came, "Get to deck. All of you, now." On deck, all 47 crew members gathered. Everyone was in shock. Around them was only gray void. The ship floated as if in the middle of nothingness. Dr. Wolf was taking measurements with his instruments. His hands were trembling. "This is impossible. Our ship is in a temporal pocket." "What does that mean?" asked Strickland. "We've separated from reality, or reality has separated from us. Here, time flows differently. Maybe it doesn't flow at all." Patrick's skin crawled. "Can we get back?" Before Wolf could answer, a sound was heard. From a distance, deep, not metallic, not organic either. Something in between. As if time itself was making a sound. And then they saw it. In the gray void, a shape appeared. It wasn't human-shaped. It wasn't the shape of anything. It kept changing. One moment tall and thin, the next moment wide and deformed, as if living all possible forms simultaneously. And wherever it touched, time changed. It approached a piece of the ship's metal. The metal instantly rusted, rotted, turned to dust, as if 100 years passed in 1 second. "Fall back!" shouted Strickland. But it was too late. One sailor was too close to the thing. The creature didn't touch him, but proximity was enough. The man screamed, his face wrinkled, his hair turned white, his body shriveled. In 1 second he became 80 years old and collapsed to the ground. He was dead. Everyone panicked. They ran, they fled, but there was nowhere to run on the ship. Patrick and Benjamin entered a cabin in the lower deck and locked the door. "What do we do?" asked Benjamin, breathless. Patrick thought. "Did you hear what Wolf said? This is a temporal pocket. Maybe, if we can move forward in time, we can get to a place where this thing doesn't exist." "How?" "The ship's generators are still running. If we change the settings, maybe we can manipulate the flow of time." It was a crazy idea, but there was no other choice. The next hours, or however long it lasted, Patrick and a few survivors tried to reprogram the ship's generators. Dr. Wolf had left his notes before dying. "If we change the frequency," said Patrick, "maybe we can jump between different time periods. 1 second we're in the 1950s, the next second in the 1960s. "But that thing," asked Benjamin, "will it come with us?" Patrick had no answer. They activated the generator, and the ship jumped. 1 second they were in the gray void. The next second the ocean appeared. But only for 1 second. Then void again. Patrick realized they were jumping through time periods. 1945, 1950, 1955. 1 second at a time. And with each jump, that thing fell a little further behind. "It's working!" shouted Benjamin. But the joy came too early, because with each jump, part of the ship disappeared. Some corridors no longer existed. Some rooms were empty. The temporal transitions were tearing the ship apart. And the crew was diminishing. 47 people, then 35, then 20. Some disappeared, some aged, some just never existed. Patrick and Benjamin held on until the end. 1978, Maine coast. Fisherman Ray Foster couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the ship's silhouette. Through the fog, like a half-ghost, a large warship was slowly approaching the shore. "What the hell?" he muttered. He grabbed the radio. Reporting to Coast Guard, unknown vessel, identity unclear. An hour later, the Coast Guard arrived. Commander Linda Ashford approached the ship with her team. When they reached the ship's side, they couldn't make sense of what they saw. USS Eldridge, a ship that had disappeared 35 years ago. "How is this possible?" said her assistant. "This ship disappeared in 1943. That's what the official records say." Linda called through the megaphone. "USS Eldridge crew. Show yourselves." Silence for a while. Then a figure appeared on the ship's deck. A young man in his 20s, wearing a 1943 Navy uniform. "Help us!" he shouted. "Please, it's still here." Linda and her team boarded the ship. The corridors were dark and silent, but inside there were survivors. 12 people, all young, all in 1943 uniforms, all in shock. Patrick Brennan stepped forward from the group. "I'm Patrick, seaman. This ship, USS Eldridge, we're from 1943. Linda frowned. "What are you saying? From 1943? This is 1978. Patrick's face went pale. "What?" "Number. We were just 4 hours ago we were in Philadelphia. The experiment started, and then 35 years ago," said Linda. "I don't know how much time passed for you, but in our world, 35 years have passed." The crew fell silent in shock. Some cried, some collapsed. Benjamin turned to Patrick. 35 years? Our families? Everyone is aged, maybe died, but we're still young." Linda looked at them with pity. "We'll take you to the hospital. You need to be examined." Patrick nodded, but then he remembered. "No! We can't leave. It's still here." "What is?" Patrick pointed to the depths of the ship. "The thing that eats time. It came with us. And if we don't leave the ship, it'll take you too." Linda looked skeptical. "What are you talking about?" And at that moment, the lights went out. In the dark ship, the sound started again. Deep, metallic, temporal. Linda swept the area with her flashlight and saw it. At the end of the corridor, a shape, constantly changing, not human-shaped, but human-sized, as if made of shadows. "What is that?" she whispered. "A temporal predator," said Patrick. "It disrupted the flow of time, and it feeds on human lifespans. With every touch, it steals years." The creature slowly approached. With each step, the metal on the walls rusted, the ceiling rotted. "Run!" shouted Linda. Everyone ran. Coast Guard team, crew, everyone rushed to the deck. But the creature was faster. It approached a Coast Guard member. The man screamed. His hair instantly turned white. His face wrinkled. In 1 second, he became 70 years old and fell to the ground. "Abandon ship!" shouted Linda. "Now!" They boarded the Coast Guard boat. But Patrick had hesitated. He looked at Benjamin. "If we leave the ship, it will go ashore too and eat our time, the whole world." Benjamin understood. "What do we need to do?" Patrick looked back at the ship. "We need to restart the generators. Send the ship back to the temporal pocket, trap it inside." "But we'll be inside too," said Benjamin. Patrick nodded. "Yes, but at least we'll have saved the world." Linda heard them. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," said Patrick. "We already lost 35 years. We don't belong to the world, but you You can still live your lives." Benjamin looked at Patrick. His eyes welled up. Together. Together. The two men returned to the ship. 6 more crew members joined them, a total of 8 volunteers. Patrick and his team ran to the engine room. The creature was behind them. It was aging the corridors. Time was its weapon. "Start the generators!" shouted Patrick. Benjamin pulled the switch. Green light appeared around the ship. The Tesla coils activated, and the ship began to vibrate. The creature screamed, or made a sound that seemed like a scream, because the generators were pulling it back, into the temporal pocket. "It's working!" shouted Benjamin. But the generators weren't powerful enough. They needed more energy to open the pocket attached to the ship. Patrick looked at the control panel and saw a button. Red. It said, "Emergency Power Boost." "What does this do?" he asked. Benjamin looked with a pale face. "It channels all power to the generators." But it could blow up the ship." Patrick touched the button. "We're leaving anyway, aren't we?" Benjamin smiled. A sad smile. "I guess so." Patrick pressed the button. The power surge was incredible. Green light rose to the sky. Around the ship, reality cracked. A temporal portal opened. Linda and her team watched from the shore. The ship was disappearing. First, it blurred, then it became semi-transparent. Then, it was gone. An explosion sound. But not a normal explosion, a temporal explosion. The waves spread like a shock wave. And then, silence. USS Eldridge was gone. Patrick Brennan and his friends were gone. And the creature went with them. 46 years later, oceanography professor Dr. Amanda Cross was examining old records on the Maine coast. She was researching the ghost ship incident from 1978. In the files, she found a photograph. The last moment USS Eldridge was seen, covered in green light, and on deck, people. She zoomed in on the photograph. A young man was looking at the camera. He was smiling. A sad but determined smile. Below the photo was a note. Linda Ashford's handwriting. Patrick Brennan, 23 years old, sacrificed himself to save the world, never to be forgotten. Amanda touched the photograph. "Thank you," she whispered. And that night, on the Maine coast, a green light flashed in the sea. Just for a second. Then it disappeared. Perhaps USS Eldridge was still there, in the temporal pocket, in an endless loop. Patrick and his friends, protecting the world forever. Invisible guardians, prisoners of time, heroes,